If you won't give Emma the money, then you're no longer our daughter." That was the last thing my father ever said to me. And no, he didn't whisper it in anger, or shout it in a heat-of-the-moment rage. He said it calmly, coldly, like he was deleting a contact from his phone. "Hi, I'm Emily Carter. I'm 29. And for the last 5 years, I've been the family wallet. The one who works 60-hour weeks so her younger sister can chase her 5th dream in 5 years. The one who got guilted every time she said no. The one who was supposed to sacrifice everything because that's what good daughters do." But that sentence, that moment, was the match. And what I did next, they never saw coming. It started like a dozen arguments before. I was sitting at the kitchen table in my parents' home in Austin, staring down at my Chase account on my phone. My balance had taken yet another hit after Emma's emergency. Her rent was overdue again. And she had an important opportunity to join a business mastermind in LA for only $2,500. I had said no for the first time in years. "I can't keep doing this, Mom," I said. My voice was tight, but I was holding it together. I've paid her car note, credit card debt, rent, even that yoga retreat she swore would change her vibration. She needs to stand on her own. My mother didn't even look up from the stove. "Emma needs the money more than you do." That sentence hit me like a slap. I blinked at her. "She's going through a difficult time," she added sharply, as if that explained everything. "And I'm not," I said. "I'm working 2 jobs. I've been skipping lunches to pay for someone else's avocado toast." She turned then, finally. Her eyes were hard, her mouth tight. "She's your sister. Not everyone can be as cold and calculating as you." That word calculating hung in the air like poison. That's what they always said when I tried to set boundaries. As if having a budget made me the villain. "She's been through a lot," my mom continued. "She's not like you. She's special." There it was. That word again. Special. Emma had always been special. Creative. Sensitive. Destined for bigger things. And me, I was the stable one. The practical one. The boring one. The one who made just enough money to be taken for granted. "Special doesn't mean entitled," I said. Just then, I heard my father's footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, intentional. "What's this I hear about you refusing to help your sister?" he barked as he entered the room. He looked straight at me, jaw clenched, like I'd committed a crime. "She called us crying," my mother added. "Her rent is due tomorrow." "She should get a job," I said, quietly but firm. "Any job." The silence after that was nuclear. My parents exchanged a glance. One I'd seen 100 times. The one that said, "She's being difficult again." A job, my mother said it like I'd suggested human sacrifice. "Your sister is not meant for ordinary work like you." My chest tightened. I felt like I was underwater, like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. "She's an artist, a visionary," she continued. "She's 32, I snapped. "And she's never paid her own phone bill." My father stepped forward, slammed his hand on the table. The water in my glass jumped. "That's enough," he said. "If you won't help your sister, then you're no longer our daughter. Get out." And that was it. No pause, no discussion, just get out. I looked at their faces. No grief, no second thoughts, just rigid disappointment. I stood up slowly. My body felt weightless, like it wasn't mine. I grabbed my purse and my laptop bag. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, her voice suddenly shaky. "Away," I said. "Away from this." She didn't follow me. Neither did my father. My hands shook as I backed out of the driveway. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I drove in silence for 15 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a quiet Starbucks. I sat there in the car, staring out at nothing, my heart pounding against my ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. My phone buzzed. It was Emma. Of course it was. I didn't answer. Another buzz? A voicemail. Then another. From my mom. I turned off the phone. That night, I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle. My company had a satellite office there, and I'd saved just enough barely to relocate. The idea of starting over in a new city where no one knew I was the responsible one, where no one expected me to bankroll their spiritual awakening or business boot camp. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases with essentials. My hands shook again, not from fear this time, but adrenaline. I opened the top drawer of my desk and paused. Inside was a folded letter I'd written to myself 2 years ago. Back when I was on the verge of quitting my job to fund Emma's failed jewelry business, I had never mailed it, just kept it as a quiet warning. I reread one line out loud. You deserve to be more than the background character in your own life. I slipped the letter into my laptop bag. That afternoon, as I boarded my flight to Seattle, my phone, still on airplane mode, buzzed with 17 missed messages. I didn't read a single one. But I remember the last text I saw before I powered down. It was from my mother. If you get on that plane, don't ever come back. You're dead to us. The message should have broken me. Instead, I smiled. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from guilt. I was running towards something better. Something mine. Seattle smelled like wet pavement, coffee, and possibility. I landed just past 10 p.m., 2 suitcases dragging behind me like anchors from a life I was finally cutting loose. The Uber driver asked if I was moving for school. I just said something like that. Something. What I didn't tell him was that I was moving for peace, and I didn't know how to live in it yet. The company I worked for, Tactics Security Systems, had a small satellite office in Belltown. My manager, Jenna, had approved a quiet transfer. No questions asked. She was the kind of boss who noticed when you were breaking but didn't push. Just opened the door. I used my remaining savings to rent a tiny 1-bedroom apartment near a dog park I didn't have a dog for. The air smelled clean. The walls echoed. For the first time in years, I had space that was mine, not bought through obligation, not shared through guilt. And then the quiet set in. Not just literal silence, but the absence of drama. No frantic 11 p.m. calls from Emma. No crying voicemails from my mom. No budgeting spreadsheets trying to figure out how to pay someone else's bills and my own. I didn't realize how addicted I'd been to urgency. I'd spent so long living on edge that I didn't know how to relax. So I worked a lot. 60-hour weeks turned into 70. I dove deep into code, tightening security architecture like I was tightening the bolts of my own broken foundation. Then came Kate. Kate Liang had been my college roommate, Vietnamese American, sharp-tongued, and loyal to a fault. We hadn't spoken in a year. Life, work, Emma. But when I posted a photo of Pike Place Market on my private Instagram story, she messaged within 2 minutes. Wait, are you in Seattle or just visiting? Moved, long story. I'm in Queen Anne. Let's get noodles, tonight. That dinner lasted 4 hours. She was the first person I told everything to, from the way my father said you're dead to us like it was a corporate memo, to the way Emma's emergencies always lined up with Coachella or full moon ceremonies. Kate listened. No judgment. No, but she's family. Just chopsticks clinking and quiet nods. You realize, she said finally, they were using you. I stared at her. I know. No, she said, leaning in, really no. The way abusers use charm, guilt, and shame to keep their victims in place. Financial abuse counts. I didn't cry, but I felt something shift. Kate had a way of slicing truth into digestible pieces. She never softened it, but she never served it cold either. That night, as I walked back to my apartment, I passed a small gallery. In the window was a photo of a woman sitting alone at a long dining table, dozens of empty chairs around her. A single caption below it read, "Sometimes we confuse being needed with being loved." I stood there for 5 full minutes. Over the next 2 years, I rebuilt myself in fragments. Tactics gave me room to grow first as a senior developer, then as an R&D lead. I joined a mentorship group for women in tech. I started therapy, slowly learning that I wasn't too cold or too logical. I was simply someone who had to protect herself for too long. And then came the spark. One night, during a cybersecurity audit for a client, I found a vulnerability in how their servers handled encrypted transactions. It was small, technical, but exploitable and dangerous. I flagged it, built a patch. My CTO was stunned. "Why are you still in middle management?" he said. I shrugged, because I've been playing small for years. He grinned. "Want to stop?" That was how LockSwitch started. A startup focused on smart, automated security tools for startups and nonprofits, especially those run by women and minorities. I built it out of my apartment with 2 old friends from college. We worked nights and weekends, testing firewalls while eating takeout on my living room floor. Kate came on as COO 6 months later. We raised our first angel investment after 9 pitches. The lead investor was a woman who said, "You talk like someone who's had to survive in a war zone, and now you're building armor for others." I didn't tell her how accurate that was. By year 2, LockSwitch had 20 employees. We signed our first Fortune 500 client. TechCrunch ran a feature. I started getting interview requests, podcast invites, speaking gigs. And then one morning, I opened my inbox and almost dropped my coffee. Subject line: "Congratulations, Emily. You're on the 30 under 35 list from Forbes editorial." I stared at the screen. I read it twice, then 3 more times. A part of me wanted to scream. A bigger part of me just sat back in my chair and breathed. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not for what I gave others, but for what I built. 3 days later, the article went live. My face, my story, my name. Emily Carter, co-founder of LockSwitch, former software engineer turned cyber entrepreneur, building safer tech spaces for underrepresented voices. Kate brought champagne to the office. My team cheered. My inbox exploded. And so did my phone. Voicemails, texts, DMs, dozens. Some were from old coworkers, college professors, a few distant friends. But then I saw those names. Emma, Mom, Dad, Uncle Trey, my old neighbor who once told me I was too intense to keep a man. They weren't congratulating me. They were reaching, trying to climb back in now that the ground I stood on was made of gold. The first voicemail was from Emma. "Hey sis, saw the Forbes piece. You're a rock star, so proud of you. Listen, I've been working on this incredible business idea. Just need a little capital. Maybe you could advise." I hit delete. The second was from my mother. "Emily, sweetie, we miss you so much. Your father and I always knew you had potential." Emma showed us the article. "Call us." "Okay." Delete. Then came my father. Gruff, awkward. "Your mother's been crying since we saw the magazine. You could have told us. We're still your family, you know?" That word family hit different now. Because real family doesn't abandon you for saying no. Real family doesn't come back when they smell money. And I knew, in that moment, what was coming next. They weren't just going to try to call. They were going to try to rewrite history. I stared at Emma's Instagram post for a long time. The childhood photo, the pink pajamas, her caption sweet, performative, completely fabricated. "So proud of my big sis. Couldn't have done it without your love all these years." Love. She hadn't spoken to me in 3 years, not unless you count that time she called me selfish trash for refusing to fund her Reiki startup. Now, suddenly, she was using me to look wholesome online. And people were buying it. Dozens of comments poured in. Sibling goals. Your sister's incredible. Just like you, manifestation works. Look at y'all. I could feel the blood rising to my face. I was still in bed, the morning light streaking across the sheets like a spotlight I didn't ask for. My hands gripped the phone too tight. That old ache, part fury, part grief was crawling back up my throat. I clicked on her profile. She'd posted 5 times since the Forbes article dropped. All about growing up with such a driven sister. All about how we always pushed each other. Each one tagged me. She even used hashtag #LockSwitchFounder like it was a trending hashtag for her own clout. My phone buzzed again this time, a notification from an old mutual friend. Didn't know you and Emma were still tight. She always talks about you now. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't just being erased. I was being rewritten. By lunchtime, I was pacing my office, staring at my whiteboard, not seeing a single word on it. Kate knocked on the glass door and poked her head in. You good? I turned. My voice came out sharp. She's co-opting my story. Kate walked in, closed the door behind her. Emma. She's weaponizing nostalgia, tagging me in baby pictures, posting like she supported me through this journey. Kate raised an eyebrow. Didn't she once steal your laptop charger and try to sell it as energy-infused tech on Etsy? Exactly. I pulled out my phone and scrolled. She's not just pretending. She's profiting. She's pushing a new coaching service, authentic branding through storytelling. She's using our sisterhood as proof of her brand-building skills. Kate sat down across from me. You gonna call her out? I paused. I'd been quiet for so long, choosing peace, choosing distance, choosing myself. But silence doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, it lets someone else build a throne out of your bones. No, I said. I'm not going to call her out. Kate blinked. You're not? I'm going to outgrow her. That night, I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and opened a new Google Doc titled Emma Carter Financial Record Archive. Receipts. Bank transfers. Text messages. Emails with subject lines like, last time, I promise an emergency need $1,000 by midnight. 19 transfers, totaling $53,270, all from before I left. I stared at the total. Then I opened a second document. Memo, the cost of enabling. I wasn't going to publish it, not yet. But if she ever pushed too far, I wanted it ready. Not to shame her, but to protect myself. Because in a world where women are constantly told to be forgiving, to keep it in the family, to be better than those who use them, sometimes documentation is your only weapon. 2 days later, a voicemail popped up. From Mom. Her voice was soft, rehearsed. Emily, I just wanted to say how proud we are. We read the article. It's beautiful. Your father and I were saying how brave you are. Emma says you've inspired her. Then came the real reason for the call. She has a business plan, a real one this time, a social media agency. She just needs some startup capital, since you understand business now. I laughed out loud. Not bitter. Just done. They still didn't get it. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of what they could use me for, what I could give them, the access I represented now that I had a platform. And there it was again, the twist. They didn't change. They just switched tactics. That weekend, I opened my laptop and dug out an old file, the one where I'd written the speech I never gave at Emma's 30th birthday party, because our parents said it was too honest. It started with, I love my sister, but love isn't a license. I had buried that line, that whole file. Now, I printed it out, taped it above my desk. A new kind of vision board. Then came the email from Mom's best friend, Barbara, who always smelled like cinnamon and judgment. "Sweetheart, your mother is devastated that you've shut them out. They've changed. Emma's changed. She just needs a little help, and she'd be back on her feet. You're so successful now. Surely you can afford to be generous." I stared at the screen. Afford to be generous. As if generosity was the default tax for being successful. As if success made me a sinner for setting boundaries. That email told me everything I needed to know. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted restoration of the old dynamic. Where they ask, I give, and my needs are invisible. I took a deep breath, opened my phone, and began cleaning house. Blocked Emma. Muted Mom's number. Marked Dad's email as spam. Unfollowed cousins who only ever reached out when something exciting was happening in my life, never when I was drowning. I even took down the old photo from my office wall, one of our family at the Grand Canyon. In its place, I hung a framed copy of my first investor contract. Still coffee-stained, still imperfect, but real. Earned. Mine? Kate stopped by during lunch. She looked at the empty spot on my shelf and the new frame above my desk. "Clean break." "Clean enough," I said. "I'm not erasing them. I'm just unplugging their power supply." Kate grinned. "About time." Then she leaned in. "You know what the old you would have done?" I sighed. "Sent the money just to stop the guilt." "Exactly." She lifted her iced tea in a toast. "To the new you. To the version of me who knows where the block button is." I smiled. We clinked. And I meant it. Later that night, as I was brushing my teeth, my landline rang. Only 5 people had that number. I let it ring once, twice. On the third, I picked up. "Hello?" A voice I hadn't heard in years drifted through the receiver. "Sweetheart, it's your mother. It took me ages to get this number. Jennifer finally gave it to me. Listen, Emma's in trouble. She needs you, please." My hand tightened on the phone. Not again. Not this time. I stood there in my pajamas, toothbrush still foamed in my mouth, listening to my mother's voice on the other end of the landline. "Emma's in trouble. She took out some bad loans. She's in deep. Emily, she needs $75,000 by next month, or... That word carried weight. Suspense. Manipulation. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and sat on the edge of the bed. "What kind of loans?" I asked. There was hesitation. "Business-related. Some investment opportunity. The details aren't important. What matters is she trusted the wrong people. And now, it's all coming down on her." I leaned forward, pressing my fingers into my temples. My heart wasn't racing. That was the surprising part. I felt calm, steady, and just so tired of the same script. "She got scammed," I said flatly. "Didn't she?" "She was promised quick returns," Mom admitted, but they lied. I closed my eyes. The pattern was so predictable now, it was laughable. High risk, no plan, no research, no accountability, and then come the pleas. The floods of guilt. The word family dragged out like it's a binding contract I never signed. "Mom," I said slowly, "do you know how I got startup capital?" Silence. I worked 60-hour weeks. I continued. I saved every cent. I skipped vacations, missed weddings, lived in a studio apartment with mice. I pitched to investors who turned me down 6 times before one even said, maybe. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. That's how you build something real, not by calling your sister after you've blown through your last scam. "That's not fair," she snapped. "She's not like you. She's never had your discipline, your focus." "And why do you think that is?" I cut in. "Who raised her to believe she'd always be rescued?" That landed. I heard her breath hitch. "You and Dad taught her that love looks like bailing someone out. That being special means someone else pays for the damage. We did what we could." "No," I said. "You did what was easy. You leaned on the child who made life less chaotic, so you could keep enabling the one who didn't. Silence. And then, in the background, I heard the unmistakable rustle of movement. Then his voice. My father. Gruff. Cold. Now, listen here, young lady. I flinched, not from fear, from the sheer force of memory. How many times had that voice ended the conversation? Not this time. No, I said firmly. You listen. I stood up, walking to the window. The Seattle skyline blinked like 100 quiet witnesses. I am not giving Emma $75,000. Not now. Not ever. She is 32 years old. She has made the same mistakes over and over again, and I will not bankroll her delusion one more time. She's your sister. Then she can learn to act like one. We're coming to Seattle, he barked. We'll talk in person. No, you're not. Don't test me, Emily. You don't have my address. And if you try to get it, I have a restraining order ready to file. There was a gasp in the background. My mother, horrified. My father fell into stunned silence. You wouldn't dare, he hissed. Try me, I said. I protect my peace now. That includes keeping toxic family members away. Click. I hung up. My hands were shaking not from fear, from adrenaline. Because for the first time ever, I finished the sentence. I didn't let them steal my voice. I didn't leave space for them to fill in guilt where I left a boundary. The next morning, I opened my inbox to a subject line from Emma. Wow, cold much? I deleted it. Then came the text. You selfish bitch. You have all this money and can't even help your own sister. Good luck staying successful with that attitude. I blocked her. Not just her number. Her email. Her business page. Her backup Instagram account I didn't even know I was following. I blocked everything. Then I opened a private browser and Googled her consulting agency. It was gone. The domain name no longer active. No mention of clients. Just cached screenshots from 2 weeks ago claiming she had 30-plus clients ready to scale with Soul. No one takes down a business that fast unless the walls are caving in. She was drowning. And her first instinct wasn't to swim. It was to drag me under with her. At lunch, Kate found me on the balcony outside our office. You look like you just fired your entire family, she said, handing me a protein bar. I kinda did. She waited, chewing slowly. I told them no. Emma needs $75,000. Took out some bad loans. Surprise, surprise. Kate raised an eyebrow. That's what, the third time? Fifth, I said. Then I looked at her. You think I'm wrong? She shook her head. I think you finally figured out that just because you can save someone doesn't mean you should. I nodded. But in truth, there was still a part of me that was hurting. Not for Emma, but for the little girl version of me who used to think love meant sacrifice. That being useful would make me irreplaceable. That being good meant being empty. That night, I opened my journal, the one I hadn't touched since my first week in Seattle, and I wrote a letter to myself, to the girl who boarded a plane 3 years ago. Dear Emily, you are not their bank. You are not their fixer. You are not the glue for a family that breaks you to stay whole. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to walk away. And when they say, but we're family, you say, exactly, and that's why I'm done letting you treat me like I'm nothing. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of my startup binder. Between the first investor contract and a sticky note Kate left on my desk once that just said, build it your way. A week later, I got an email from someone unexpected. Subject line urgent. Emma Carter, financial inquiry. It was from a lawyer. Not mine. Not hers. But someone claiming to represent a group of people she borrowed from. And just like that, this wasn't just family drama anymore. It was about to go public. The subject line pulsed in my inbox like a siren. Urgent Emma Carter, Financial inquiry from Graham and Bell, LLP. I hovered my mouse over the email for a long moment. My office was quiet. The hum of the overhead lights, the faint clicks from my team down the hall, none of it reached me. I clicked. Dear Ms. Carter, we represent a consortium of private lenders and angel investors who were approached by Ms. Emma Carter regarding investment opportunities in a now-defunct venture titled Core Light Agency. Ms. Carter has listed you as a professional reference and implied financial backing from your firm. We are requesting clarification regarding your role and any financial involvement you may have had with this business. Respectfully, Jason L., Graham Legal Counsel, Graham and Bell, LLP. I stared at the message. My stomach dropped. She used my name. Not just tagged me in Instagram stories, not just told mutual friends I was her inspiration. She invoked me as a reference, and worse, implied that LockSwitch backed her company. That wasn't just low, it was potentially libel. I called Kate. She picked up on the first ring. Hey, what's up? She dragged the company into it, I said, my voice flat. What do you mean? She told private investors that I backed her consulting agency, that LockSwitch was involved. She used us to gain trust and probably money. I could practically hear Kate's pulse accelerate. She crossed the line. No, I corrected her. She lit the line on fire and danced over the ashes. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind. I forwarded the email to our in-house legal advisor, Trina. She called me 10 minutes later. This is serious, she said. If your name or the company's brand was used fraudulently to secure capital, we need to protect ourselves legally and reputationally. I nodded, already assembling the receipts. Within the hour, we had a short statement drafted, a legal cease and desist order ready to send, and a PR clause to invoke if the story went public. Kate added one more suggestion. Let's document it all. She handed me a fresh yellow legal pad. Every call, every text, every fund transfer. We log it. That way, if this implodes, we're ready. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in the office, laptop open, surrounded by spreadsheets and old emails. There was something surreal about seeing it all laid out. 5 years of help, of just this once, of, I'll pay you back next Friday, I swear. It looked like evidence now. Evidence that love, when twisted into obligation, becomes something ugly. Around 1 a.m., I pulled out my startup binder, flipped to the back. The letter I'd written to myself after the call with my parents was still tucked inside. I read it again. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to walk away. This time, I smiled, and then I began writing a new letter. To Emma. Dear Emma, you listed me as a reference. You used my name without consent to secure money from strangers. This isn't about jealousy or childhood fights. This is about boundaries. I gave you over $50,000 because I believed in you. But belief doesn't excuse theft. It doesn't excuse fraud. And it sure as hell doesn't excuse dragging my company into your mess. You say you're in trouble. I believe you. But this time you're not taking me down with you. I didn't send the letter, but it needed to be written. The next morning, Trina emailed me back. Emma's name had appeared on 3 separate pitch decks to angel investors, with my name bolded under strategic mentor and advisor. She even used an old press photo of me from TechCrunch. She really thought she'd get away with it. Or maybe she didn't even care. Maybe she assumed, as always, that I'd just clean it up after. And then came the twist. 2 days later, I received a second email from one of the investors themselves. Ms. Carter, I trusted Emma because of you. She showed me a screenshot of what looked like a Slack conversation between the two of you discussing her brand vision. It seemed real, but now I'm not sure. I invested $10,000. It's gone. She won't return my calls. I'm not asking for the money back. I'm asking for the truth. Sincerely, Lydia Stone. I didn't recognize the name, but I felt the devastation in her words. Emma didn't just lie about our relationship. She forged one. And now real people who had nothing to do with our family drama, were hurting. Kate and I met with Trina in the conference room that afternoon. We laid everything out: Emma's emails, the pitch decks, the screenshots from her coaching site before she took it down. Every single manipulation. "We need to protect the company," Trina said, "and your reputation. If she goes down, she may try to take you with her, or at least spin it like you were involved." Kate crossed her arms. "So what's the plan?" I looked at them both. And for the first time, I didn't feel conflicted. I felt clear. That night, I logged into my personal LinkedIn and drafted a short, professional post. "It has come to my attention that my name and likeness have been used without consent in association with business activity I was never involved in. To be clear, I have no affiliation with any coaching or consulting services run under the name Core Light Agency, nor did I endorse or advise any such entity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to build ethical, transparent businesses, and I take accountability seriously. If you have questions, please reach out directly." Kate read it over before I posted. "You sure?" "Absolutely." I hit publish, and in less than an hour, it exploded. When Sarah and I finally spoke, it was nearly midnight. Her voice trembled, even through the phone. "She promised we'd be partners," she said we'd launch a women-led consulting empire. I gave her 20 grand from my savings. That was my son's college fund. I sat silently, absorbing every word. And then she ghosted me, blocked my number, deleted every chat. I only realized something was off when your LinkedIn post showed up on my feed. By the time we hung up, she wasn't the only one. Over the next 48 hours, 7 more women reached out. Each had the same story, just with slightly different packaging. Emma pitched them a business, promised mentorship, cited family connections in tech. Some even had forged email headers with my name, photoshopped Slack threads, or voice memos she sent pretending I was in on the deal. It was a scam, not sloppy, not impulsive, orchestrated. I forwarded every story to Trina, our legal counsel, who now had a dedicated folder in our system titled Emma Fallout. "You've got civil grounds here," she told me. "Defamation, identity misuse, potential fraud if she signed anything with your name." I nodded, but didn't speak, because something inside me had shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't just protecting myself from Emma, I was protecting other women, too. And that changed everything. The next twist came at 9:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of reviewing an expansion proposal when Kate walked into my office holding her phone like it was radioactive. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Check your inbox." I pulled it up. Subject line: request for mediation. Carter family versus Emily Carter. At first, I thought it was a joke. But there it was. My parents. They weren't suing me yet. But they were petitioning for mediation, citing emotional distress, reputational harm, and family deterioration due to professional statements made in public platforms. Translation: they saw the LinkedIn post, the fallout, the comments, the mini-viral thread that spun off from it about financial abuse and family guilt culture. And now they wanted to reframe the narrative. Not apologize. Not take responsibility. Control the optics. Trina sighed as we went over the letter. "They're hoping to corner you emotionally," she said. "Paint you as the ungrateful daughter turned ruthless CEO. They want you to play nice so they can save face." "I'm not playing nice," I said. "Not anymore." Kate leaned back in her chair. "You want to respond?" "No," I said, standing. "I want to go on record." That afternoon, I agreed to a podcast interview with The Quiet Rebellion, a platform that highlighted women breaking cycles of silence, of cultural pressure, of inherited trauma. I didn't name names. I didn't air dirty laundry. I just told the truth. That I spent a decade funding someone else's fantasy while my own dreams waited on a shelf. That I was gaslit into thinking boundaries were selfish. That I was taught love meant giving until I broke. And that when I stopped giving, the people who claimed to love me cut me off like a bad credit card. The episode dropped a week later. Within hours, it hit trending status. DMs flooded in. Women, men, LGBTQ+ kids, survivors of narcissistic families, immigrant daughters, first-generation professionals. Thousands of people who had been told that their worth was conditional, that family loyalty came before self-preservation, that speaking up was betrayal. And now they had a name for it. They had language. The public response wasn't just emotional, it was tangible. Tech platforms reposted the episode. 3 investment groups reached out to explore partnerships with LockSwitch. A national Women in Leadership conference invited me to speak. I wasn't just surviving my story. I was redefining it. And then Emma called. She used a new number. I answered instinctively before recognizing her voice. Emily. Silence. Just her breathing. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. I said, I'm responding. You made me look like a criminal. You forged documents using my name. Emma. You used other women's savings. You blocked people. You disappeared. You think I meant for it to go this far? Her voice cracked. I was desperate. You wouldn't help me. What was I supposed to do? Not scam people, I said, my tone like steel. That would have been a start. I needed to build something, to prove I was more than the screw-up everyone said I was. I exhaled, and for the first time, I heard it. The panic, the shame, the emptiness behind her anger. She wasn't evil. She was entitled. Raised to believe someone else would always save her. And now, no one would. I hope you get help, I said, but I'm done. You don't get to use my name anymore, or my silence. Please, she whispered. They're coming after me. I don't know what to do. I do, I said. And then I hung up. That night, I went home and sat on the floor of my apartment, same one I moved into 3 years ago, when I had 2 suitcases and no support. I pulled out the tiny ultrasound photo I'd kept taped to the back of my startup binder. It wasn't a real baby. It was the symbol I'd created during the hardest year of my life. The startup. The thing I built when no one believed in me but me. I held it in my hands and said, quietly, "You're safe now." The next morning, Trina walked into my office with an envelope. "Thought you'd want to see this," she said. Inside was a formal notice. Emma Carter had been served a civil complaint. Class action. Fraud. Defamation. Intentional misrepresentation. 7 plaintiffs. And counting. When I held the legal envelope in my hands, something strange happened. I didn't feel vindicated or victorious. I felt done. Not exhausted, not numb, just finished, like I'd closed a book that had dragged on too long, and finally reached the back cover. Emma Carter had been formally named in a class action lawsuit. 7 plaintiffs, civil fraud, identity misuse, damages totaling over $270,000. With every one of their stories echoing mine in some form, the promises, the charm, the manipulation, the silence. Her lawyer had gone quiet. My parents' radio silence since the mediation request flopped. And me. I walked out of the meeting room, stood by the window of my office, and watched Seattle's skyline shimmer in the late afternoon haze. I'd built this, every square inch of it. Not with their money. Not with their approval, but with my own 2 hands and the stubborn belief that peace is worth protecting, even from the people who gave you your last name. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since I left Austin. I logged into my old family Google Drive. There, buried under folders titled Emma's Vision Boards and 2016 Thanksgiving Menu, I found a shared photo album called Our Girls. I clicked through slowly. There we were, me and Emma as kids on a trampoline, at science fair, at prom, and then college graduation. In every picture. I could see it now, the pattern I never noticed before. I was always in the background, holding the camera, handing over flowers, smiling with restraint while Emma stood center frame. And that's what this was really about. Not money, not lawsuits, visibility. All my life, I had confused being dependable with being seen. And now, I knew better. That afternoon, I gathered my team in the lock switch conference room. Not about Emma, not about the lawsuit, but about legacy. I know we've grown fast, I began, and I'm proud of everything we've built. But I want to make sure we never become the kind of company that thrives off silence or fear. They nodded, listening, still. So here's what I'm proposing. Starting next quarter, we launch a grant for women entrepreneurs who've walked away from toxic environments. Whether it's family, partnerships, or workplaces, no strings, no pitch decks, just belief in potential. Kate looked up, her eyes shining. What do we call it? I smiled. The ultrasound grant. They laughed, confused. So I told them the story. About the tiny fake ultrasound I kept taped to my startup binder. The metaphor for something I nurtured alone, in the dark, when no one else believed it would make it to life. Sometimes, I said, we carry things the world can't see, and we build anyway. The next twist came not from Emma, not from investors, but from a reporter. A woman named Rochelle from The Atlantic reached out. I have been following your story, not just the business, but the personal arc. I think what you've done is quietly revolutionary. Would you be open to a profile? Normally, I would have hesitated, but something in me said yes. Rochelle flew in from New York, spent 2 days shadowing the office. We walked through Capitol Hill, talked about legacy, family, identity. She asked, if you could go back and rewrite one part of your story, what would it be? And I said something I didn't expect. Nothing. Because the people who broke me also revealed me. They forced me to choose myself, and I finally did. The article dropped 3 weeks later. The headline: she was her family's ATM. Now she's building a bank of her own. It trended within hours. And that's when the final message came. A text from an unknown number. You're welcome. No name. No follow-up. Just 2 words that shook me more than anything else. Because I don't know who sent it. Emma. A former investor. My mother. My gut tells me it was someone closer, maybe even someone I thought was long gone. But I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some ghosts don't deserve to be resurrected. Last week, I moved into a new apartment. It's nothing huge, just a 2-bedroom with wood floors and too much light. But on the wall above my desk, I hung 3 things. The framed first investor contract still with the coffee stain. A printed copy of my Forbes feature for the days I forget I earned it. And my letter to myself, the one that reads, "You are allowed to walk away." And now, to you watching this, listening to this, maybe recognizing a version of yourself in my story. Let me say what no one said to me. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for choosing your peace. You are not wrong for refusing to be broken again just so someone else can feel whole. You are allowed to rewrite your role in your own family. And you don't need a courtroom, or a podcast, or a viral post to validate that choice. You just need one thing. Your voice? If this hit home for you, drop A in the comments. Tag someone who needs to hear this. And if you're still waiting for permission to walk away, Let me be the first to say it. You're allowed. Family is who shows up when you're not useful anymore and loves you anyway. Thank you for watching. And if no one told you today, you matter. You're enough. And you're not alone.